Connacht end their losing streak with a win in Parma. My name's Mark, let's talk rugby. Connacht finally finding a little bit of form just as the season is ending, and yeah, not a brilliant season for them, but at least they finish it with a win. So in this one, Fusco, first of all, lovely kick from him into the corner, and that was from a Zebre scrum around about halfway. Connacht under pressure with a defensive 5-metre line out, but their line out has been the best in the URC this year. They claim it, but then Ben Murphy gets isolated. Zebre with a penalty kicked that to the corner, but then Connacht able to make it unplayable in the maul and clear after the scrum. So both teams kind of pushing there, probing, looking for those chinks in the opposition defence. We then have some applause in the 14th minute, in remembrance of Cornel Hendricks, former Springboks, sadly lost his life this week to a heart attack. Really sad situation, such a young guy, and condolences to his family and friends. Just a terrible thing to happen to anyone, at such a young age. Yeah, it's not a great thing to happen, honestly, but unfortunately, it does happen to people, and poor El Cornell was one of those for it. But yeah, condolences to his family and friends. Connacht then, they strike as they shift the ball wide left. Good offload, releases Prendergast, and then he bounces off the tackle, first of all, of Hasse, then fends two other would-be tacklers before going over the corner, and then he's able to come around behind the post to make it an easier conversion, and is converted for 7 points to 0. Zebre then win a scrum penalty to get a 22 entry, and when they win another penalty, then they go to the corner, they set up the maul, they're creeping forward. The usual happens, backs pile in then to try and help them, but Connacht have been edging them, towards the sideline bit by bit, and finally get them out of play. Great defence there from them. Then we have quick thinking from Ben Murphy. He taps a free kick from 5 metres from his own line. Makes a little break, finds Finn Tracy, who brings it up a little bit and just thumps the ball downfield. Connacht then turns Zebre over in the maul from the resulting line out, and then they win a penalty at the scrum, and now it's them that's kicking to the corner. So, basically his quick thinking got them from their own 5-metre line right up to the Zebre 5-metre line instead. Then they're battering away at the line. They've got penalty advantage. Hanrahan then, he goes wide to Shane Bolton, and he's over in the right corner. Conversions missed, 12 points to 0. Hawkshaw then gets isolated, and Zebre decide, they got to get something on the board in terms of points at that stage. So it's right in front. Monty Mowry steps up and absolutely smashes it off the outside of the left post, and it runs dead. Should have got that. That was, somewhat criminal, honestly, missing from there. Then he kind of makes up for it a little bit, though. He makes a break. Zebre sparking into life. They move it left where they've got numbers, but then there's a miss out pass to Jesse, and it is knocked on, and Fusco, hugely frustrated, just slams the ball into the ground. And the reason for that is there was no need for the skip pass. Trula was there. Pass should have gone to Trula. He could have drawn the cover and then just pop it to Jesse, and he's over to score. So silly play there, and I can understand Fusco's frustration. That's actually difficult to say, a bit of a tongue twister. But they do get over a few minutes later. Jesse strips the ball, and then they move it wide left to Trulla, and he finds Stavile, and he gets through a tackle, grounds in the corner. There might have been maybe, lost the ball forward or something there, but Timo, I'm sure, has checked it in the background, and Holly Davison said it's fine. So, we didn't see too many angles from it, but you'd imagine that they have, so can't really complain about that. Converted for 12 points to 7. Connacht then get Cordero free, and then onto Ford, who offloads to Ben Murphy. He chips close to the line, but then Fusco does really well, collects the ball and gets back over his own line. Connacht then claim, there was a trip on Ben Murphy just after he put the kick in, but Holly Davison is close on hand. She says no, foul play, it's play on. Then Connacht continuing to apply pressure, though. Janssen breaks the line, and then Connacht into 22 again. There is a tackle off the ball on Josh Murphy, and they've got a penalty. They kick that to the corner. They get up to the line, pounding away, and finally then Hurley Langton gets over to score. That's converted for 19 points to 7, and Connacht looking quite comfortable at this stage, looking like maybe they're going to stretch their lead from there, but Zebre just start turning things a little bit, little by little. First of all, Savili breaks on the right wing, and then he puts the kick in, and Trula just goes absolutely crazy because he's on his left on the inside, and it was one of those ones where Savile just had to draw that cover tackle and then pop the ball inside, and Trula was probably over to score. So, and then you could see actually just after that they were setting up for the line out, and Stabile is going after, I'm pretty sure to say sorry, but going after Trula to try and say sorry, and Trula just has his back to him walking away and just doesn't want to know anything about it. So hopefully those two make up, after the game, from there, because two really good and really important players for Zebre. But yeah, probably should have been a score for them. Next then, Jesse collects a kick in his own 22, and then he kind of puts on a little bit of footwork. He didn't kind of dodge around players. All he did was he collected the ball right out near the touchline, facing his own line, and there were Connacht players coming up kind of on like infield of him, and he just spun around and just ran straight back out. Again, no real steps, but just the footwork to be able to change direction very quickly, and he gets out of there, and they're breaking up the line now. And then he combines with Stabile, gives it to Stabile on his inside, then back out to him. Then he's looking to cut inside. Connacht do get him to tackle, but then the play breaks down. We have a check, Timo check for cynical play from Connacht. It's a penalty against Devine for, he was offside, never back onside all the time, and played at the ball. So he goes to the bin. Last 10 minutes then, Zebre have an extra man, and straight away they move the ball from the penalty. They get it to Trula, who scores in the opposite corner. Conversions missed, 19 points to 12. Zebre then, they're looking to take advantage of the extra man, but they're really kind of forcing the play a lot. There are knock-ons, there are kind of forward passes and stuff like that, and it's just stripping them of any momentum that they're trying to build. And then they get caught offside just outside their own 22. Connacht point to the post. Hanrahan playing his last game for Connacht before he heads back to Munster next season, and he slots that for 22 points to 12. And at that stage, thinking that's pretty much it, and it turns out, the last minute or so plays out, no further scores, and the full-time score, 22-12. Decent win for Connacht. Zebre, going for 6 home wins, which would have been absolutely fantastic for them. Couldn't quite do it, but still, it's been a brilliant season. But let's look at the stats, and then we come back and talk about the teams afterwards. Okay, so let me pull them up here on the official site. Right, so we're going to start with the attack. So 2 tries to 3, neither team getting a bonus point out of the game, but it didn't really matter that much. Zebre couldn't catch Connacht. They were one place between them in the table before the game, but there was 6 points. So Zebre couldn't catch Connacht either way. And then Connacht, before the game, knew that, a win would move them up, a couple of places, but they wouldn't, finish any higher. So, decent win for them, got their 3 tries, and it was one of those ones where they've done it a few times themselves, and Ulster have done this a lot, and actually Edinburgh too, where they have a purple patch and they score 2-3 tries, they get themselves a bit of a lead, and then second half, then the last kind of 20-30 minutes, they're not adding to that, and they allow the opposition to come back at them. So I think that's why that penalty there, right at the end was important, just to make sure that Zebre didn't have a sniff then to get some kind of miracle comeback in the end, or get a draw or something like that. So then possession 41% for Zebre and 59% for Connacht. Connacht holding onto the ball a lot. It took them a while to get their attack going, after the first few minutes, but once they did, they were finding that space. Both teams, dangerous ball in hand, and Connacht did the right thing, holding onto the ball as well, and just trying to find those gaps in the Zebre defence, and eventually they did appear. Clean breaks then, 12 each, and, this is a crazy stat. Defenders beaten 11 for Zebre, so they beat 11 defenders, but they got 12 clean breaks. So somebody, it would have been what would have been that one where, who was it? Trula, right? Trula broke up the left, the one where he caught the ball and turned around, because maybe technically he didn't beat any players there, because he just turned around and nobody was coming to tackle him. Might have been that one. I'm not sure. But yeah, to get more clean breaks than defenders beaten is absolutely amazing. Connacht, by comparison, 24 defenders beaten, 12 clean breaks. So a clean break every 2 defenders beaten. That's still a pretty good return. You're seeing a lot of teams, maybe making one every 3 or 4 defenders beaten, or even up to 5 or 6. So decent from both teams, but for these two teams, attack has not been their issue this year. It's been that defense, especially against teams who maybe have defenses that can cope a little bit better with their attack as well. Offload sent 6 for Zebre and 10 for Connacht. You can see both teams looking to keep that ball alive. Onto defence territory, 39% for Zebre, 61% for Connacht. So with so much possession and territory, it would have really been criminal for Connacht to either draw or lose that game. Number of tackles, 115 to 57. So pretty much double the number of tackles put in by Zebre. 24 missed tackles to 10. So 78% success on the tackle for Zebre and 76 for Connacht. Both of those numbers well below, where you expect a URC team to be. But again, these two teams, built on attack and lacking in defence, really. Turnovers 1 then, 12 for Zebre and 8 for Connacht. So ball pinging back and forward a lot between the teams. Kicks retained, 4 kicks to 1. But, it didn't have a massive impact on the game. Again, not one of the, it wasn't really tight enough for a decent take in the air to make a difference. And then penalties conceded, 11 for Zebre, Connacht with 8. Again, keep it in single figures and you're doing well. On to players then. So, tries, got 1 for Stabile, 1 for Hurley Langton. And then successful carries, Stabile with 7. Guy is brilliant. It's just the one criticism at times, at least, would be kind of maybe that awareness of who's around them. Especially that one with Trula where he could have just popped it off, probably for a try. Then Paul Boyle, with 7 for Connacht as well. Clean breaks then, Stabile with 4 for Zebre. So that's like a third of their clean breaks, right? And then Shane Bolton with 2 for Connacht. And then onto defenders beaten, Jesse with 3 and Cordero with 7. Cordero, interesting for him, like, Connacht trying to get him on the ball more, and then when Devine went to the bin in the last 10 minutes, he was actually filling in as a temporary 9 as well. Meters made then, Stabile with 97, Finn Tracy with 66. He took a bit of a knock in the opening couple of minutes, and he basically spewed his guts up on the field as well, and but he seemed to be all right after that. Like, maybe like he just got a smack in the ribs, I think. Offloads then, Trula with 1 and Cordero with 2. Looking at the defence, so number of tackles, Canali with 12 and then Keane Prendergast with 7. In terms of like Prendergast as a captain who is kind of, follow me, the guy is brilliant, but I would question kind of decision making on his part, because Connacht, and that kind of getting the guys to finish games off as well. It's happened too much for Connacht. So hopefully he's learned from this season, and next season we're going to see Connacht doing better in certain situations, because again today built up a decent lead, but they could have lost it in the end. Turnovers 1 then, Paella with 2 for Zebre and Prendergast of 4 for Connacht. Brilliant performance from him again, but it's whether he can actually perform and lead at the same time. Still question marks about that, I think, but great way to end the season for him and for his team. So let's talk about those teams. So we start with the home team, Zebre. It has been an absolutely stellar campaign by recent standards from them. So often rooting to the bottom of the table down there with Dragons. Now they have finished 15th, so let's not get too carried away. But, they won, one game last year, was it? And then none the year before, something like that. So, but you could see there was progress in terms of them being more competitive in games over those seasons. And in this year, then they were able to kind of push on a little bit and finish off some of those, the chances that in terms of beating teams last year that they made, they were able to actually achieve that this year. They got 5 wins and a draw out of this league season. And if they had won this game, they would have actually finished with more wins than Connacht, because Connacht had 5 wins as well coming into this game, but Connacht getting a lot more bonus points than Zebre. But yeah, it's been a great season for them. There has been a lot of kind of, pressure on them in terms of chat about the, potentially getting wound up and a new team coming in Rome, etc. And, that hasn't happened, thankfully. But again, I've said it a few times. What about next year? Can they actually back up this season? Next season, when that pressure to, prove, why they basically should exist is gone, or at least is diminished, can they still do it next year? That's the big question mark. Then for Connacht, for them is, can they be consistently good? We've seen them hit the heights. In attack, they can be absolutely scintillating, but in defense, they can be absolutely atrocious. And we've seen that, all through the season and through games as well. And, they have, as I said, the best line out in the league. And, with couple that with a really good attack, they've got to build out that defensive side of things as well. And maybe then they're going to be more competitive next season, maybe coming down towards the last few rounds, actually being properly in the mix to make the playoffs, and maybe, progressing further in Europe as well. But certainly there are improvements to be made to that side. With any side, players moving on. For Zebre, you got the likes of, who did they say was, I can't remember now, but Yeah, one of their really good backs is leaving. I just can't remember his name. But both teams, with players leaving, the likes of Porch is definitely leaving Connacht. I know that. Like when he came, he was an absolute revelation, and then didn't really feature this year. But that happens a lot with Connacht. Like they bring in players, they have a good 1 or 2 seasons, and then they go off somewhere else. But they need to get a bit more continuity there. They need to get a bit more in terms of also on-field leadership, I think, within the squad for next year. And then we'll see how they go. But, decent end to the season for them, although overall maybe a disappointing season. And then on the other side, for Zebre, kind of the opposite, a disappointing end to the season, but a pretty good season from them. Okay, so that's it. Let me know what you think down in the comments.